What form? What form is this in? Is it standard form, point slope form, slope intercept form? What is it? Anyone?
Slope intercept?
Slope intercept. Not standard, slope intercept. This is y equals mx plus b. So I know that my y-intercept is -9. That's how I know this, because if it was in a different way, I wouldn't know what it is. That is a b. B. All right. Okay. So now I know my y-intercept, but do I know my x-intercept at all by looking at this equation? No, I don't. So here's how we figure it out. To find the x-intercept, we set the equation equal to 0 and solve for x. This is how we do it. Anytime you have an equation, you can make it equal to 0, and then you solve it, and you're able to figure out the x-intercept. So this is what we're going to do. So I have this equation. So I have f of x equals 3/2 x minus 9. I'm going to make that equation equal to 0. So this is going to be 0 equals 3/2 x minus 9. And now I'm going to solve for x. All right, so let's go ahead and do step by step. If I'm solving for x, what should I do first?
Add 9.
Good, we're going to add 9 to both sides. 0 plus 9 is 9. And now I need to get x by itself, but I have this, this fraction here. So who remembers? How do I get rid of a fraction? Close, it's not divide. Right, it's the opposite of division. I'm multiplying, but what am I going to multiply by? What number?
2,
Good. How'd you choose 2?
because it's with the x.
Not just with the x, more specific.
And it's in the, I forgot what it's called, miss.
It's in the
Denominator.
denominator.
The down denominator.
Denominator. You're multiplying by whatever number is in the denominator. So since I have a 2 in the denominator, I'm going to multiply by 2, but I have to do it on both sides. Now, why am I doing this? Who can answer that question that Zakaya asked? Why am I doing that?
Because you're trying to get x alone, so you're trying to get rid of everything.
I'm trying to get rid of everything, and what is this going to help me get rid of specifically?
The fraction?
The fraction, exactly. Exactly. Good job, Wenchli. Yeah, the fraction. Because what happens when you do 2 times 3/2? 2 times 3 over 2. What do you end up with?
3.
3. If you do the math, 2 times 3 is 6, and then 6 divided by 2 gives me 3.
I did the thing how you said the 2 and 2, you cross it out.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I was going to say next, that anytime you multiply a fraction by whatever's in the denominator, it's just going to cross out, and you're left with the numerator. It's as easy as that. So that's why we'll multiply, Zakaya, okay? Because like, I don't like that fraction. I don't like that 2. I need to get rid of it. So you multiply to cross it out. So now we're almost done. What's my last step going to be?
Divide 3.
Good, divide by 3. And so what's 18 divided by 3? Good.
6.
Mm-hmm. That's my x-intercept. So the y-intercept was -9, and the x-intercept was 6. Now remember that what does this actually mean? This means the y-intercept means that there's a point at 0, -9, and the x-intercept means there's a point at 6, 0. That's what these actually mean. If you have a graph of this function, you would see a point on the 6 at the x-intercept and a point at the -9 on the y-axis. Do I have any questions on how I got the x-intercept?
Well, I have a question, but it has to do with this. When you added -9 plus +9, why did you why was it empty under it?
So why did I cross it out?
Like, yeah,
Because -9 plus 9, what does that give you?
0. Okay, so
0.
we don't put anything in?
Right. So this was technically it was 3/2 x plus 0, but since it's 0 is 0, I don't have to write it down.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right. Okay, so when you have an equation, you just set it equal to 0, and that's how you find your x-intercept. But what about when you have a table? So let's take a look at this table. Does this table have the y-intercept in it?
No.
No. Does this table have the x-intercept in it? Maybe we're not sure? Well, remember, if you have the y-intercept, what's the value of x?
1.
Not 1. Zakaya, good, 0. Whenever x is 0, whatever number you have right here, that would be your y-intercept. Well, the x-intercept is just the opposite. So for the x-intercept, you don't know the x value, but we know that y would be 0. So on a table, you always look for those zeros. You look to find the y-intercept and you look to find the x-intercept. But in this case, I don't have either of them. So I need to figure them out for myself. So this is a 3-step process, okay? So step 1, we need to find the slope. And this is what we did in the bell ringer, okay? So when I'm finding the slope, what formula do I use?
y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Exactly. That should be a y, my bad. Over x2 minus x1. Okay. I have this table here. I need to use the values from the table, but I'm going to be smart about it. I'm going to choose easy numbers. So if I need to use easy numbers, which number should I choose?
3.
3 and 5. And what's another easy number?
1.
Yeah, 1 and 1. So I'm avoiding the negatives because why use negatives if you don't have to, right? You can quote me on that. Make your life easier. So here we go. What's my y2 and what's my y1? What am I
5.
typing?
1 and 5.
Good. That's my y2 and my y1. So I have 5 minus 1. And then what about my x2 and x1?
3 minus 1.
3 minus 1. 5 minus 1 gives me
4.
4. 4 over 2. What do I get? 4 divided by 2 is
2.
2. So there's my slope. My slope is 2. That was step 1. Any questions on that? That's a big, at this point, I hope everybody feels very comfortable figuring out the slope because we've done it so often by now that I hope everyone understands it. All right, step 2, now that I have the slope, I can find the y-intercept. And we did this in the bell ringer. Who remembers what I need to do?
Choose any number from the thing.
Yeah, so I'm going to choose any number from this table. So I'm going to erase what I had before. I'm going to pick any number. Let's make it easy. Let's do, well, I won't make it too easy. I'll make it 3 and 5. So I'm picking any point from that table, and I'm going to label it X and Y. And then what do I do?
Since the y is 5, so it'll be 5 equals, and then
So
Slope.
let me go back a step just to make sure everyone understands where I'm putting it. So I'm going to start with my slope-intercept equation, y equals mx plus b. And my goal is I want to fill in everything except for b. So I'm going to fill in y, m, and x. So now, Ilse, what am I putting in for y?
5.
5 for y, because I picked that from my table. What am I putting in for m?
Your slope, which is 2.
The slope, which is 2, which we already calculated. And what am I putting in for x?
3.
5.
3, back from the table. Does anyone have any questions on where I got those numbers? I want to make sure we understand. Why 3? Because remember how I picked a point from the table? In that point, the x is 3 and the y was 5. So those are the numbers that I put into the equation. So I put this as my output,
Always going to be horizontal.
and this one would be my input. Say that again, Marco?
It's always going to be the horizontal.
Horizontal, yeah, across from each other. Okay, and now I just solve for b. So now I'm gonna make a little equation. I gotta multiply first. What's 2 times 3?
6.
6. Yeah, 6. So I have 5 equals 6 plus b. And I know my 6's look like b's sometimes. So one is a 6, the other one is a b. And now to get b all alone, what do I have to take from both sides? Yeah, 6, okay, good. I'm going to subtract 6 on both sides. So what does that make my b?
1.
Close. Think about it. We're doing 5 minus 6, though. Yeah, -1, JC. Good job. -1. So b is -1, which means that my y-intercept, I didn't know it before, but now I can fill it in my table. My y-intercept is 0, -1. Questions on how I find the y-intercept? We're almost there. Step 3, ready? And we're going to do this, by the way, we're going to do this like 4 times today. So we're all step 1, step 2, step 3. We're going to do it over and over till it makes sense. Step 3 is now we have to find the x-intercept. That's our missing piece. Well, I know my slope. I know my y-intercept. Can I write an equation for this line now?
Yes.
Yeah, let's write it. This would be y equals what?
2
2.
plus -1.
Not just plus, you're missing something.
2x plus
2
-1.
x plus -1. And since I'm adding -1 to that, it's just 2x minus 1. Where, remember, the 2 is my slope, and the -1 was my y-intercept. Okay, so if you're wondering where those numbers came from, the 2 is my slope, and the -1 is my y-intercept.
Miss, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead and ask.
So when it's negative, you don't have to put addition, you can put the negative?
Exactly. Yeah, you treat it
Okay.
like
Thank you,
it's
miss.
basically subtracting. Okay, now I've got this equation. I'm trying to find the x-intercept. So what should I make this equation equal to? Not x.
Miss, what did you ask?
Y.
I have this equation. I'm trying to find the x-intercept. What should I make this equation equal to? Good. Wenchley said it. Daniela said it. JC, nice job, guys. Yeah, we're going to set it equal to 0. Remember, anytime you need to find the x-intercept, you make that equation equal to 0. All I'm doing is making it equal to 0. Notice, what did I replace with 0? Which letter did I just replace?
Why?
X.
Right. I replaced the y with a 0 because in the look at the table. When I have an x-intercept, what is the value of y?
0.
0. That's why I'm doing it. That's why I make it equal to 0. All right, we're almost there. Thank you for sticking with me. Let's finish it off. I'm trying to solve for x. What do I add to both sides? Good, Zakaya. We're going to add 1 to both sides. What's 0 plus 1? Don't get
1.
this wrong. If you get that wrong, I'm failing you out of algebra. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 equals 2x. I divide both sides
By 2.
by 2. And what is my answer here? X equals
X
1 half.
equals to
1 half, because I'm doing 1 divided by 2. Okay, so this ends up as a fraction. This ends up
Oh,
as x
okay.
equals 1 half. So there it is. That's my x-intercept. I can now put it in my table. My x-intercept is 1 half. So from these 3 steps, I figured out 3 things. I figured out that the slope was 2, that the y-intercept was -1, and that the x-intercept was 1 half. And that's what we're going to be doing a few times today. They're going to give us a table or a graph or an equation, and we need to figure out the slope, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept for whatever they give us. All right, so if you're feeling like pretty good, that's great. If you're still a little bit lost, we're going to do this over and over and over again. And what you need to make sure you're doing is writing it down, because this is like there's scientific evidence about this, that when you write things down, you're more likely to be able to memorize it. You're more likely to be able to internalize it and understand it when you write it down, rather than just watching. Ooh, there's a good question in the chat. Question in the chat: what are the common mistakes that students make on this problem? The most common mistakes, guys, are stupid mistakes, silly mistakes, because this is a 3-step process. And how many different equations did we have to do? We had to do the slope equation, the slope-intercept equation, and then in step 3, we had to do another equation, right? And if you make one little mistake in there with your adding, subtracting, multiplying, that's going to make the whole thing wrong.
For
Yes,
when you try to find the x-intercept, is it always going to be like the slope and the y?
say that again.
Like when you try to find the x-intercept,
Mhm.
you're always going to start with the slope and then the y?
Yeah, y equals mx plus b. So it's m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. So the 2 and the -1, yeah, they always go in that order. Okay, so yeah, so this is the type, today's lesson is like the hardest questions on a problem, not because any of the math is hard, it's just a long problem. How long did it take us to do this one problem? Like 5 minutes, more than 5 minutes? So the hardest thing about it, and the most common mistake, is just that you make a little mistake somewhere and then that's going to make the whole thing wrong. So that's why we have to stay super organized. Let's do another one. I'm going to skip this. Okay. So let's take a look. Can I have a volunteer read for us what we're doing here?
Miss, can I read?
Yes, go ahead.
Take a look at two functions, f times x and
F.
g times x.
So those are
I-
called, remember that those are, you don't say f times x, but we just say f of x. It's like the name of the function.
F of x and
Mhm.
g of x.
There you go.
Identify or calculate the slope, y-intercept, and x-intercept.
Okay. So here we're gonna be able to compare these two, but in order to do that, we have to know what is the slope, what is the y-intercept, and what is the x-intercept for both functions. Because I have f of x and I have g of x. F of x, they give it to me as an equation, but g of x, they give it to me as a table. So we're going to have to use the two strategies we just talked about, or the three strategies we just talked about. We're going to have to do it for both of these functions. So this is like, when you get to this question on a test, you're probably like, oh my God, now I have to spend 10 minutes doing math. Ugh. But let's just do it. All right. So this equation is actually easier. Always, if you have an equation, it's like you can already get two of the three answers without any work, because my equation tells me the slope and the y-intercept. What is the slope?
-3.
-3. What's the y-intercept?
17.5. Negative 17.5.
Oh, you're looking at the table. I'm talking about the graph.
Oh,
Or
the graph?
not the graph, the equation. And I think Zakaya put it in the chat. Yeah. So on this equation, the -3 is my slope and the 15 is my y-intercept. So I have two of the three things I need. So the only thing left to figure out is the x-intercept. And how do I do that? Who remembers? We just did it together. How do I figure out the x-intercept?
-2 plus, isn't it y equals -3 plus 15?
No. Think again. You can also say it in the chat. Good. So Zakaya says we're finding the solution for x, which is true. A couple of people just said it to me privately. Say it publicly. You guys are right. What exactly do I do? Good, Daniela. We're going to set the equation equal to 0. So I have this nice equation here. I'm going to take it and I'm going to make it equal 0. Hold on. There we go. So I have f of x equals -3x plus 15. Well, I'm just going to take the whole thing and make it equal to 0. And that way, like Zakaya said, we can find the solution for x. So what do I do to get x all by itself? Yeah, what am I subtracting?
The 15.
The 15, exactly. So -15 and -15. What is 0 minus 15?
-15.
-15. So -15 equals -3x. And now I divide by -3. So what do I get?
Five.
+5, very good. -15 divided by -3 means x equals +5, which means that's my x-intercept, +5. So I have everything I need for f of x. I've got my slope, I've got my y-intercept, and I've got my x-intercept. Do I have any questions on how I went through all those processes? And by the way, I just want to shout out, like, you guys are doing really well today with participation. I'm hearing from a lot of students that I don't often hear from, and I just want to say I'm really happy about that. So keep that up. Okay. Now I have this table. Tables are like the most annoying ones because you always have to put in a lot of work, but we know we can do that. So what do we notice in the table? Does the table give me any useful information?
The y-intercept
The y-intercept. Where do we see the y-intercept?
and 0.
Okay. Look carefully though. You're close. Is that the y-intercept?
Oh, that's the x?
That's the x-intercept. How can you always tell if you have the x-intercept or if you have the y-intercept?
Doesn't it say in the top?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the x column. The x is 2, not the y. Does that make sense? So like since it's x is 2, that means the x-intercept is 2. If it was the other way around, it would be the y-intercept. So this is my x-intercept. So that's good. The table gave us something to work with, which is awesome. Now I still need to find the slope and the y-intercept. So what do I do for slope?
Get 2 points.
Get 2 points, pick 2 points, and use the formula. So which 2 points should I use? Someone give me 2 points. Yeah, so you want to use positive numbers like Sakaya says, for sure. You want to make your life easier, right? Not harder. So pick 2 positive numbers. And obviously there's going to be at least 1 decimal because we can't avoid it. But I want you guys to try this on your own now. I'm not going to write it until I hear from some people and get some answers. Pick 2 points, use the formula, see what you get for slope. I'll give you guys about 2 minutes to work it out on your own. And if you have an answer, you can send it in the chat. Okay, about 1 more minute left. And you can use your calculator. So I see a couple people have already sent me answers. Yes, you can use your calculator. And don't forget to divide at the end. Okay, a few more seconds. While you guys finish up, can somebody tell me which 2 points they chose to use?
5 and 2.
5 and 2? Okay, I'll use those same ones. Good, guys. All right. I'm seeing some good answers. I'm seeing some answers that have the wrong sign. So we're going to talk about if it's going to be positive or negative. So let's see what we get. So using these 2 points, I would have 0 minus 10.5 over 2 minus 5. So we're going to pay close attention to our negatives. What is 0 minus 10.5?
Negative 10.5.
Right, it would be negative 10.5. And what's 3 minus 5? or 2 minus 5?
Negative 3.
Negative 3, exactly, guys. Good. So since I have a negative divided by a negative, what's my final answer going to be?
Positive.
Positive. So when you divide negative 10.5 divided by negative 3, you end up with positive 3.5. So we know m is positive 3.5. Okay. Okay, so if you got a negative number, just make sure you pay close attention. Make sure that you had the numbers in the correct order and that you were subtracting instead of adding. Any questions on slope? Cool. Now there's one last thing we need to figure out, which is the y-intercept. So remind me, how do I do that? How do I find the y-intercept? I'll give you guys a hint.
You would use one of it.
Ah,
The
Zakaya.
formula.
Okay, Zakaya gave us a hint and Cassie started to give us a hint.
Miss, that was not no hints. That was me stuttering.
Yeah.
So first thing is we're going to write down our formula, y equals mx plus b. But Cassie, you were saying you're going to find a point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pick a point. Pick any point from this table. Any point at all. Which one's the easiest one, probably?
The 0 and the 2.
Yeah, use the easiest one. Don't make your life harder. Pick any point. Label it. This is x, this is y. The 2 is x is 2, y is 0. So now I plug everything in. Everything except for b, because that's what I'm trying to find. So what do I plug in for y?
Zero?
0.
Yeah, 0 from the table. What do I plug in for m?
3.5.
Mm-hmm. How do I know it's 3.5?
M equals slope.
Yeah, m is the slope. We already found it. And what do I write for x? Good, Zakaya. Yeah, that's going to be 2. Good job, guys. Okay, so now I have everything I need except for b. But that's good because that's what I'm trying to find. And now I multiply. What's 2 times 3.5? 7. Good. So now I have 0 equals 7 plus b. And if I'm trying to get b all alone, what do I do?
Subtract 7.
Subtract 7. Perfect. So I subtract 7 on both sides. That gets rid of my 7. And what is 0 minus 7?
Negative 7.
Negative 7. So b equals negative 7. Whew, okay, we did it. We did it. Now I have everything I need. I have everything I need for g of x. And I have everything I need for f of x. So now let's answer these questions. Question A, which function has a greater rate of change?
Fx. F of x.
F of x. Why do you say f of x?
Because it's a greater number.
Which number are you looking at?
5.
Is that the
Miss,
rate of change?
I think it's the g x
G of x. And why do you say g of x?
because the slope is greater than the other
The
one.
slope, yeah. For this, we're looking at the slope, and slope is m. And g of x has the bigger one because for g of x, m equals 3.5. Whereas f of x, it's negative 3. So g of x has a greater rate of change. What about b? Which function has a greater y-intercept?
F of x.
Good, f of x. f of x because b equals 15. Whereas in g of x, b equals -7. So obviously f of x is much greater. And then which one has a greater x-intercept?
F of x.
F of x, the x-intercept is 5, whereas g of x, it was 2. So f of x wins. All right, so all of that work that we put into this problem, and boom, we're done. Do I have any questions? You guys, I am loving the participation. I want you to give me this energy every day because I am loving it, okay? Is it because I'm wearing ears? Is that why you guys are paying more attention to me today?
Yes, miss.
It's the shiny ears
It's Friday.
because it's Friday? Well, that's good. I do, by the way, I have a Halloween surprise for everybody, but I'm not going to reveal it until the end of class.
Really?
All right,
Liz.
let's do
Watch
one
her
more.
say homework. Watch her say homework.
You think that the surprise is going to be
dead.
homework? I'm not going to.
Loki thought that too.
I won't say anything. I won't say anything.
Miss.
Miss, are you gonna show us your
Miss.
costume?
It's
Oh, a quiz.
week.
Yes,
Miss
I
is
think it's a
quiz
quiz.
on
It's a
Friday.
Because
quiz.
every week we do a quiz.
Oh
All right,
yeah.
we'll talk
miss.
about it at
Oh
the
my
end.
God.
We'll talk about it at the end. I see a question in the chat that I want to answer super quick. So how did I tell which of these was the greatest? Well, each question is asking a different thing, right? So rate of change was asking me for m. This was saying which one has a bigger number for m. For f of x, m was -3, but for g of x, m was 3.5. So that's why that one was greater. For b, what was it asking for? B was asking for the y-intercept. So I was looking for the value of b for both f of x and g of x. And since it was 15 for f of x, that one was bigger. And then finally, for the last one, it's asking for the x-intercept. Well, the x-intercept was bigger for f of x because it was 5, whereas on the other one, it was 2. So you're just looking for the bigger number. That's all you're doing between both of them. Let's do another example. All right, so in this case, take a look at what we've got. They have two functions. One is a graph, and the other one, this is weird, right? What is this? What are they doing? They gave us a bunch of
Function.
points. That's annoying. I hate when they do that. But that's okay because I know what to do. What's the best way to organize a bunch of points? What do I put them in?
Put them in like a table.
Yeah, let's put them in a table because we know how to handle tables. Tables are easy. So I'm just copying these points down. I have -4, -6, -2, -2, 2, 6, and 4, 10. I just made a table just to make it easier. And I still have to do all the same things. I need to figure out the rate of change, the y-intercept, and the x-intercept. So let's start with my table. How do I figure out the rate of change? The slope.
Find two perfect points.
Find two perfect points. And by the way, this graph is going by ones, so each box is 1. So where do I see one perfect point?
Three, comma 3.
3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Good. 3, 3. Can anyone tell a different one?
2, 1.
2, 1. Good. Okay. So between these 2 points, I'm going to do rise over run because I haven't done that yet today. So let's show what that looks like. So I go up and then I go to the right. How many units do I go up? I'll zoom in a little bit more. How many units up? Yeah, 2 units up. And then how many to the right?
1.
1. So my slope, since my slope is rise over run, what do I write?
2 over 1.
2 over 1. Exactly. 2 over 1, which
Melanie.
I got you. 2 over 1. Oops, that's really what did I do? I changed the width. There we go. 2 over 1, which simplifies to just what?
2.
2. Okay, so my slope is 2. Questions on slope? Again, this is all a review today. We're doing a lot of reviewing of how to do all these things because I know it's a lot. So I just want to make sure we get a lot of practice. Now I need to find the y-intercept. Where do I look for that?
On the y.
Miss, what did you say? I can't hear you.
Now I'm looking for the y-intercept. So where do someone was answering me. Where do I look?
On the y-axis.
On the y-axis. Where does my graph, where does my function cross the y-axis?
3.
3?
-3.
-3. 1, 2, 3, right here. That's -3. That is my y-intercept. So B is -3. Questions on how I found that? We should all feel pretty good about finding the y-intercept. You just look to see where it's crossing the y-axis. So the last thing left is to figure out the x-intercept, and where do I look for that? Look closely. Where is it?
1.5.
1.5, very good. Basically, it's where it's crossing the x-axis, and it's kind of in the middle, but this is about 1.5. So that is my x-intercept. And JC had it first, by the way. He just said it privately. So x-intercept is 1.5. Okay, I'm done. Graphs are pretty easy because on a graph, it's a lot of you just got to look and find it. So there wasn't that much math that we had to do. We mostly had to use our eyes. But we have everything we need for my graph. Now I go over to my table. And does this table give me anything useful at all?
No.
There's nothing. So we got to do all the work. So let's do it. We got to do our 3-step process. What's step 1? Who remembers? What do I find first? If I'm looking for slope, x and y, what do I find first?
The slope.
The slope comes first. Take 2 minutes on your own and find the slope. I'm not going to show you how. See if you can do it on your own. 2 minutes.
But
Use
Miss, we can choose whatever two, right? The
any
two
2
equations.
points.
Okay.
Any 2 points, exactly. Sorry, guys, I just saw your answers in the chat. I wasn't looking before. I didn't expect everyone to do it so quickly. So I'm replying now. 10 more seconds. And all right. So I'll go through it really quickly, but pretty much everyone who sent it to me got it right. Could somebody share what they got for slope? Good, Zakiya got 2, and that is correct. So the slope is 2. And give me 1 second to copy it down. Okay, there we go. My 2 points I'm going to choose are the easy ones. I don't want to use negative numbers. And here I would have 10 minus 6 over 4 minus 2. 10 minus 6 is 4. 4 minus 2 is 2. And 4 divided by 2 is 2. So m equals 2. All right. Step 1 is find the slope. What's step 2? Now that I have the slope, what can I find next?
The y.
Good, the y-intercept. Okay, and I told you guys we're doing over and over again. What do I do here? Good, Zakiya. Y equals mx plus b. I sound like a broken record. What do I plug into this whole thing? What do I
Miss,
plug
you
in?
want us to tell you?
Yeah. Tell me.
M is 2.
M is 2. Okay, so what are you choosing to plug into it?
Um, 4.
Okay, so you're choosing to put 4 comma 10, right? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, you're going to take a point from the table and you're going to plug everything in except for b, because b is what you're trying to find. Okay, so I want you guys to try that on your own. Pick a point from the table, plug in the x, plug in the y, and plug in m, and try to see what you get for b. Okay, a couple more seconds. Good, I'm seeing some correct answers. Good. Good job. All right. So, okay, I see a few answers. Oh, I'm sorry. Angel, I didn't answer you. Okay. All right, let's make sure that, so this is where, for example, if you're asking me like where would you maybe make a mistake, this is a place where you might make a mistake, because here you have to make sure that you're doing your positives and your negatives all correctly. So I plug in, what do I plug in for y?
10.
10 goes in for y. What do I plug in for m?
2x,
Just 2. What do I plug in for x?
4. My bad,
4.
miss.
No worries. Plus b. So I plugged in everything except for b, and now I'm going to solve. I have to multiply. What's 2 times 4?
8,
8. How do I get b alone?
subtract 8 in both sides.
Subtract 8 from both sides. So what's 10 minus 8?
2.
2. So that's my answer. 2 equals b. So b equals 2. All right. I got my slope. I got my y-intercept. I'm almost there. What's the last thing I have to find now?
The x.
Yeah.
Yeah, the x-intercept. So now here's where we put it all together. I know my slope. I know my y-intercept. What is the equation I can write for this line? What's the equation? I know the slope. I know the y-intercept. What's the equation?
0. Does it start with 0?
It's going to be the general equation. Slope-intercept equation. So before you plug in 0, that's what I mean. This is easy. It's not a hard question, I promise. No math necessary.
Oh, never mind.
Miss, you're asking us like which equation, right?
Yeah, I have the slope. I have the y-intercept. Ascanio's giving us a little clue. We got to do y equals mx plus b. What's the equation for this line? I know my slope. I'm going to say this over and over till someone says it correctly. I know my slope. I know my y-intercept. What's my equation?
Slope and
Good,
never mind,
Daniela. Y equals 2x plus 2. That's not a hard question. We've been doing this,
Miss,
guys.
I was going to say that, but I was going to say 0 equals 2x.
I know, and I was telling you, I want the step before you plug in the 0, you got to start out with your fresh equation, okay? Now that I have the equation, I can plug in 0. Why am I plugging in 0 again? Or why am I making it equal to 0?
because we're finding the x-intercept.
Exactly. Okay, so once you have the equation, then you put a 0 in. And now let's solve for x. Solve for x on your own. See what you get. Send it in the chat. Awesome, guys. I'll give you guys 10 more seconds if you want to send me your answer. All right, let's finish it out. So I'm trying to find x. I take away the 2. What's 0 minus 2?
-2.
So I have -2 equals 2x. And when you divide both sides by +2, what do you get?
A negative.
Negative, yeah. So you end up with -1. So now let me summarize everything we got. So for the table, for g of x, m was 2, b was 2, and the x-intercept was -1. So now I have all my information for g of x, and I have all my information for f of x, which was the red one. Way back, we did that like 3 years ago at this point. So f of x is red. All right, let's compare everything. Which one has the greater rate of change?
Miss, what did you ask?
So now I'm answering these 3 questions. Okay, so problem A, which function has a greater rate of change?
The gx.
What is the rate of change for g of x?
2.
2. What is the rate of change for f of x?
1 point. Oh, it's because I was looking at the x. They're the same.
They're the same. Here, this is telling us to look at the value of m. For f of x, m equals 2. For g of x, m is also 2, so they're equal. And who can remind me, so the answer to this question would be neither, because they're equal. But who can remind me what, if 2 lines have the same slope, what's their relationship to each other if they have the same slope?
Equal.
Equal, but there's a better word, it starts with a P.
Parallel?
Parallel, good. So they are parallel. Which of these has a greater y-intercept?
The fx?
So what's the y-intercept
Oh,
of
the
f of x?
y-intercept.
G.
Y-intercept.
The gx.
G of x.
G of x.
Miss,
'cause
they're getting me confused. I had to look at it again.
So what's the y-intercept of f of x?
-3.
-3. So that's not it, because what's the y-intercept of g of x?
2.
+2. +2
Miss,
is
I like this
greater.
lesson.
Good. G of x has a greater y-intercept. And then which one has a greater x-intercept?
F of x.
F of x, because what's the or the x-intercept of g of x?
1.5.
Yeah. It's 1.5 versus -1, so f of x wins. Oh, I see, Hikaya. You thought it said -2. That's fine. Okay, so we just did a bunch of stuff. We have like 15 minutes left. So what I'm going to do for the rest of the time is I'm going to give you one more question to work on completely on your own. And I want you to ask questions. Okay? So don't think that this means that you can just sit there and stare at a piece of paper if you don't know what you're doing. If you're stuck, ask a question either privately or out loud, and I'll explain it for everybody to hear. Okay? Because we're working on this together. We're in it together. So here's the problem you guys are going to try. Read it very carefully. Read it very carefully. So it says, consider the function f of x equals 3x minus 2, and the function g of x, which is represented in the table below. So what are my 2 different functions? Which one's f of x?
3x subtracted by 2.
Yep. So f of x is an equation, and g of x is this table. Now, this table is written kind of sideways. So if you want to, you can also copy it down the way that we're used to seeing tables. And if you copy it down this way, what would be my first point?
1 to 3.
Yeah, 1, comma 3, 3, comma 7, 5, 11, 7, 15, and 9, 19. So sometimes it's easier to see it that way. So you've got your two functions. You're going to find, what are the three things you're going to have to find?
The slope, the x-intercept, the y-intercept.
Good. Find slope, y-intercept, and x-intercept. All right. There's about 15 minutes left of class, so I'll stop when there's about 5 minutes left and we can go over the answers super quickly and then we'll be done.
Miss, I know for the, like, you know how the graph is like that? And would the y2 still be like at the bottom?
The y, remember, yeah, so, okay.
'cause,
So when you're looking at the table the way it's originally made or when I recreated it?
like when it's like this,
When
because you know,
horizontal?
yeah,
Okay, so you would pick 2 points the same way. So which 2 points did you choose?
1 and 3.
1 and 3 and 3, so 1 comma 3 and 3 comma 7?
Yes.
Okay, so now it would go this way. So this would be y1 and this would be y2. This would be x1 and this would be x2. Because if you did it the other way, that's how it would be here.
Oh, I didn't see
You
that.
see that? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to answer a question publicly. So when you're working on step 2, when you have the table and you're trying to figure out the y-intercept, you pick 1 point from the table, any point from that table, and that's your x and that's your y. So when you're plugging that back into the formula, you plug those 2 numbers in for x and for y. All right. It is 3:43. I know I wish we had more time. Unfortunately, we don't have more time, but I do want to make sure that I give everyone the answers. That way, if you want to take a screenshot of this problem and work on it on your own, do it. This question, do it because this question is from a test that was like 2 years ago on a test, and they love to reuse the same problem. So this might come back to you on a different test. So if I were you, I would definitely take a picture of this and make sure you remember how to do it. All right, so real quick, for f of x, for my equation, I'm going to write this down here. For f of x, straight from the equation, I'm not doing any math. I know that the slope is what?
2.
3.
3. Slope is 3. Y-intercept is
2. -2.
-2. And the x-intercept, did anyone get it?
2/3.
It was, 2/3.
Oh.
2/3. You can try it on your own. You guys know the steps already. You're going to set it equal to 0, and you should get the same answer. For g of x, we had to calculate everything. So what did you guys get for slope?
2.
2, good.
2.
What did you get for y-intercept?
1.
+1. And did anyone, I know a couple of people got the x-intercept. Who can tell me what it was?
-1.
Not quite. Who got it? Good, Daniela. -1/2. Again, if you didn't get to that point, then try this on your own later on and make sure you get the same answer. And now that I have all this information, I'm going to go down the line and choose my answers. So I'm going to read it out. You guys say true or false. True or false, the slope of f of x is smaller than the slope of g of x.
False.
False. Good. Letter B, the y-intercept of f of x is smaller than the y-intercept of g of x.
True.
True. Which one's the y-intercept?
-2.
-2 is smaller than +1.
Oh.
That's true. C, the values of f of x and g of x, actually, I'm going to skip this one for now. I'll come back to it. D, the lines represented by f of x and g of x are parallel.
No.
No, why
False.
not? Why is that false?
Because
If they were parallel, what would be the same?
it would be the same. And it would be the same.
The same what?
In x-intercept?
What would be the same? Not the x-intercept. If it was parallel, what has to be the same for both lines?
The Y?
The slope. The slope has to be the same. They would have to have the same m, but they don't. So that's false. And E, the line represented by f of x crosses the x-axis to the right of the line represented by g of x. Think about that in your head. I'll read it one more time. The line represented by
Yes,
f of
everybody's
x.
leaving.
I know. That's probably the ones in school that probably had to log off. But let me just finish it. The line represented by f of x crosses the x-axis to the right of the line represented by g of x.
False.
I don't know.
Crosses the x-axis to the right of. If it's to the right, would it be greater or less?
Greater, I think.
Greater, because it's
Yeah.
positive.
Right. So this is saying okay, so let me reread it using that. The line represented by f of x crosses the x-axis, so the x-intercept is greater than g of x. Is
Miss,
that
I think it's true.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
True.
Okay. C was also true, and you know that because when x is 3 in my table, when x is 3, y is 7 for g of x. And in my equation, if you plug in 3, you get 7 also. So you get the same answer. So that one was
Also, GX is just like Y, but it's like
Yeah.
different.
right. G of x is the same thing as y.
All right.
Okay, guys, today's class was a lot. I know that. And I know that it's also
Ooh,
Halloween.
the surprise.
And I know that you guys have been working really, really hard, especially this class. I'm really proud of so
Aw.
many of you. So my Halloween gift to
So
you,
you guys deserve a quiz.
my Halloween gift to you is that you will not have a quiz this week.
Yay! That's a miracle.
Thank you,
Because
miss.
I didn't even know anything. Jeez.
Thank you.
No
That's a miracle.
quiz.
Thank you, miss.
But if there's any
Wait,
problems,
miss, the students that left are probably like, oh my gosh, the quiz.
I'll post it on Teams later so that they see it. But
No,
my
miss.
one,
Because they left.
yeah, but I'll post it.
We
I'll-
deserve it. I'm
Oh,
playing.
so just you? Yeah, just you deserves no
Yes,
quiz?
miss. They should also
We
be
deserve it.
online.
We stayed to the end of class.
But they had to
No.
leave because the bell rang. It's not their fault.
They
Miss,
could have
I
No,
literally,
some
like,
of the people on Zoom.
I literally like learned nothing. I didn't even know what this lesson
For
was.
real. I'm
Miss,
over
I
here
learned the whole
lost.
lesson.
Like
I
30,
was-
like
guys-
30
Hi,
minutes in.
miss.
You guys were on it today. Don't give me that. You guys were you guys
It's
all
like
did
30
it.
Miss,
minutes
it
later, what
seems
am I
like I knew,
learning?
but I was lost, miss. Like the
Y'all
whole
talking at the same
I
time.
was
whole
good on
time.
everything.